Ugar was a scientist, but not an ordinary scientist. He was a dinosaur scientist. He spent a lot of time looking at
dinosaurs. He spent a lot of time looking at dinosaurs. What he was particularly interested in was dinosaur teeth. He was fascinated by the different gradations of both sharpness and size.
He had been almost around the globe in the most unusual situations, finding teeth of every imaginable size and shape. Sometimes these would be hidden, where he would explore and explore and explore and not find only but just one little one. But other times he
hit the mother lode of teeth. And today was the day. He found a giant tooth with the most unusual
poison sac in it. And it just changed everything he knew about dinosaurs. He immediately rang his colleague.
Okay, so you know where we are. We've got a really good foundation. Something has happened. A big event has happened, and because of that, something's going to happen. Mm-hmm. He rang his colleague, Anne and Charlotte.
And said, Paul, you're never going to believe it. There were poisonous dinosaurs in days gone by. And what's more, they lived very near
an enormous village. And what I'm thinking is, did this village build itself in that place so that it could harvest the poison? So that it could
use the poison to be able to bring down these giant animals that were so hard to hunt for with just sticks and stones. And so he was telling Paul this, and Paul said to him, but whatever you do, don't touch the poison sac. Because if you do,
if you do, you're sure to die. Drop dead. It will be bad. Just don't do it. But he didn't listen.
So when he touched the poison, it was in the morning, and his alarm clock rang, and he left it beside his bed at night, and he was reaching for the alarm clock, and there it was on his hand. He didn't die immediately.
But he felt terrible. Oh, he turned green. Oh, he limped around. Oh, he went to his loved ones and he touched his wife. Green.
And then just when he thought it couldn't get any worse, Paul showed up at the door. He had flown halfway around the world to talk to him in person about
what might happen if he touched the poison sac. Now, what you need to know is that where they were when he touched that poison sac and Paul flew in and all those people were around who had already turned green, was they were in Wuhan, China. And that's how COVID-19 started.
I am suddenly really sad that I'm recording this because we're going to start another damn conspiracy theory. As if there weren't enough of them.
Yeah.
That's the most plausible of all.
It was good.
That was fun.
Yeah. It's amazing how it's so different every time once we get a feeling for it.
Yeah, that is good. So you've gone not too far, but you've done, I mean, it was really great. You can be somewhere in the middle in the amount you say. So everything you did was great. I'm not meaning this at all as a criticism. I'm just saying don't feel like you have to restrict yourself to just that much. It can be that much, you know, shouldn't be that much. Somewhere in there, you can say a little more if you need to. Not that there was anything wrong with what you did. It was great.
It would be interesting to, if the story builds itself in this way, to see what would happen if we went a little longer, says the guy who ended the story twice.
Why'd you do that, Steve?
But I think sometimes the story feels like it's had its time and it needs to come to a resolution.
And that was a good ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one way to make it longer and to bring more interest to the story is to bring two characters into it instead of one character. And we started to do that a little bit. We just didn't have a chance to get these two characters interacting very much. I think Catherine had said something about that earlier. So that's one thing you can think about, is bring these characters in, and then when something happens, it happens not just because character one does something, he touches a tooth, for instance, but one of the characters does something to the other one. Two brothers are sitting down and they're talking about the recent death of their parents, and one character says, yeah, you know, I went to the reading of the will, and I got to tell you, she wrote you out of the will. And then you've got something going on between them, and they've got to find a way to deal with that. That's an event. And because of that, some things happen. But they're happening between the characters, and that keeps it very interesting. So you want to try that?
Mm-hmm.
Get someone else in there. And Catherine's prompt was a lifeguard.
Oh, yeah.
Let me say something about these prompts. You don't have to take the prompts really literally. It does not have to be a story about a lifeguard. It could be, you know, a story that we find out at the very end and said, yeah, and when I took that bullet for you, I really felt like I was guarding your life. You know, I mean, it could be a completely different story at the beginning, and then it comes around at the end and it's a lifeguard. It could be something.
So Bruce,
yeah.
Is it that the prompt is for the group, not just for the person who starts the?
I'm kind of enlarging it to that now.
Okay.
I'm just saying you can be very flexible with how you take the word lifeguard. It does have to be in there somewhere. So I'm trying to give you an example from improv. So we had a prompt once that was escalated, and the skit was about a young woman who had just won like a beauty pageant and things, and she had to stand up on a little podium, which had to step off onto it. And I'll tell you, in this 5 minutes that the skit went on, I had her up and down on that podium about 10 times. She was up there and she would get scared and she'd come down, and then I'd reassure her and things. We'd talk about it and stuff, and she'd get back up on the podium and she'd come down from the podium and she'd get back. That was the escalator. So there was no escalator in the story at all, right? It was completely lateral brained on that. So you can do those things with these stories. You don't have to make them. I don't want you to feel like they have to be about a lifeguard sitting at the beach. However, if you would like to tell a story about a lifeguard at the beach because you were excited about it, go for it. That's a good thing.
We were doing a little exercise like that in Connie Reagan Blake's workshop last fall, and the prompt was summer. Summer. And so one guy told this great short little story about a woman very important in his life whose name was Summer.
Right. Yeah. Right. It should be that. But Catherine, you liked lifeguard as lifeguard. Go with lifeguard as lifeguard. Go with the guy at the beach.
Well, I think okay. Every summer since they were small, they had gone to the same community pool. And when they were little, they loved coming to this pool. It was their favorite place. They had staked out where they wanted to sit. And they had been close friends for a very long time coming to this pool. And then
Just
Wait.
go back and give them
Okay.
2 names. And
Okay,
Harry and
they
Peter,
had been
what
close
were-
friends all the years coming to this pool. And people sometimes thought that was funny because Jane and David never dated. They just were best friends.
It was their habit to prepare very carefully before they came to the pool. Of course, it was important which swimming suit they wore, and they tried to mix it up a little bit, to show that they were up on the latest styles. And it was very, very important that they brought the right snacks and the right music in their cassette recorder. So this was the way things went for that long summer in 1985 until
David became obsessed with Prince. Loved Prince music. What's the girl's name?
Jane.
Jane hated it.
Hmm.
And an argument grew between them about the music of Prince.
And what made it slightly more embarrassing for Jane was that David liked to dress as Prince at the pool also and perform like Prince at the pool. And she spent her time sitting further and further away from him while begging him, can you please sit down and just wear something ordinary?
Now, David loved being the center of attention. For far too long, he felt he was just an ordinary guy. And some muscles. His chest was starting to fill out. There was even a bit of hair on it. And he thought to himself, why shouldn't I let everyone know that I'm the best looking guy here at the pool? Just because Jane is skinny and jealous, I don't have to behave that way. I'll just sing on.
There was a policy at the pool that you couldn't do anything that was louder than if the whistle of the lifeguard was blown. And David had begun bringing speakers with his jam box so that he would push the limits of how loud he could play Purple Rain.
Jane was really deeply disturbed. She was torn between her loyalty to these childhood friends. Goodness, these two had, they played in the sandbox together when they were just itty bitty little ones. Torn between her loyalty to her friend David, who had turned into this adolescent thing, not like the boy that she knew, but this boy, man, whatever. Her loyalty to David and her desire not to be seen as an oddball like she really felt he was. What would she do? Would she stick with him and try to tone him down? Or would she look for someone else to sit with? Finally,
The answer came to her because one day they were at the pool and these big boys that were bullies at their school started picking on David for his Prince music and his Prince look. And Jane said, oh no. And so she
got her raspberry beret, which she had been hiding in her bag, and she changed the music to Raspberry Beret, and she just really got in the face of those boys and sang it full bore, Raspberry Beret. And they didn't know what to make of her, and soon
They started to cheer. And they too began to dance around. And so it was that the pool turned into a musical. And people came from miles around to see all of the people. Only unhappy person there was the lifeguard. The end.
How to get that lifeguard in.
Couldn't think of any other thing to do.
It was good. It was good. It was very good. So that was great. It was great. You want to talk about it a little bit? We have 10 minutes left, or you want to try another one? What are you?
I'd like to talk about it. I'm really fascinated because when I went to drama school for 2 years, and of all the things, improvisation was my most difficult thing. And I was very hit and miss. I could be really good, or I could be really bad, and I could sometimes really blank out, even though our teachers were very positive and constructive and supportive. So it's quite, but when I heard that that's what you were going to do, I thought, well, that's exactly what I need. And I'm grown up enough and old enough now not to get nervous about those sorts of things. But I was thinking, you know, I'm not sure how good how rich my contribution will be, but it's really, really great to have that focus of actually, it's almost like stone soup. You know, it's more about contributing to the pot, and I know that intellectually it's not about you. But the thing that I think at this particular time, it's always relevant, but this particular time it's so poignant, is the community building and the capacity building that this exercise translates to, way beyond actually just making up stories, but about being able to contribute to the collective without worrying about your own ego, and then understanding how the group mind can make something much richer and more beautiful than you can all on your own. So it's got such many, many layers of good medicine in it.
Yeah, and so I've done something like this at a workshop on teaching, and suggested it's a kind of for classes that do a lot of discussion, it's a way to get the students really to know each other and to feel more like a group and those kind of things. And the students who I've done it with have felt that at the end of it, right? They felt more coherence than they would have felt otherwise, and that they know the people. In a certain way, you know the people, even though you don't know details about them, you don't know stuff about their lives, you know something about how they would think, or they tell a story, and that connection comes through. Yeah.
I think that interesting how it has this feeling of being able to be how do I want to say it? I didn't feel like I had to hold back my desire to come up with something helpful and creative, and the need to build it together didn't inhibit that, which in other setups it does, particularly with men who are women can be competitive as well, obviously, but men are sort of prone to do that way too much. And so that was cool. That was really cool because everybody could shine a little bit, but we had this goal of doing it in a way that it built, just as you said, built on what was before, and created something that could be handed off. The stone soup metaphor is perfect. It gets richer. Each ingredient makes it richer, and we don't know how it's going to taste when it's all done. So there's risk there, but
I think it's just a lovely way to have us be tethered together, but not too tightly, and then also to teach the idea that, like, there's not a wrong. There's not a wrong contribution. You know, I might laugh harder at somebody or cry, but there's that all of the parts are necessary and critical and important, and that it's the collaboration that's the whole. It's not, and I think that in the last story, like as we kept doing it, that collaborative piece where it was like, oh, what are they gonna, instead of trying to think about my own setup, it just whatever came out of my mouth was not going to be wrong, because somebody else was going to take it and turn it into something good, even if I stalled out. So it didn't, it just worked. It was lovely.
Yeah.
Improv and this kind of thing is scary to me. So it was fun practice, and with the safe group of people. And it was good also because I do teach classes online and do storytelling with kids, and to participate in an exercise similar to what I do with them is good for me to see, the other side of that. So it was really fun.
I do want to say something about not having anything that's wrong, which is right, but I caution you about saying that if you're a facilitator to the group, because some people will take that, especially if you repeat it. Well, let me just tell you the story. I mean, I've had someone who was in a group where someone was repeating it all the time. They were just always reassuring everyone that there's nothing wrong, you can't do anything wrong, can't do anything wrong. And then they would correct people. And a woman just had a meltdown. She just had a complete meltdown, You're telling us all the time it's not, and she left the group and never came back, said, take me off all the mailing lists and stuff, So it's something that people can experience themselves from your facilitation on this, but just be careful about saying it because people might take it absolutely literally. And there are things you can do that are better than others. I mean, the things that you can say wrong is if you tell the story yourself, you don't use any of the stuff, Jenny says, Paul is he's studying the dinosaur things, and you say, and then the space aliens came down. That's not the best thing to go right after the,
They brought the dinosaurs.
They brought, and then, then the third person could fix it for you, right? And then you'd be okay. But that second person there, you could have said, that wasn't the best one to say at that time because it should be a coherent, you should be listening to what the other people are saying.
Yeah.
Steve.
Bruce, I think you did such a good job. You're such a good teacher. You did such a good job in a very few words of setting us up for things that would be more helpful. You didn't have to say doing it this way will be wrong. You said try to make it something that you can hand off that the other person can really use.
Right.
And you had several of your tweaks, your suggestions to us made it better every time without anything being labeled as wrong. You labeled it as this will be even better.
Yeah, right. And that's what you want to do. You want to do it. And so you're all teachers, and that's an important lesson. Yeah. And we're doing metacognitive stuff now, right? Looking at how you teach effectively. And so the thing that I would say that 90% or more of teachers don't get is how the basics of how people learn. And the most important thing of how people learn is what I call the learning circle. You do something, you make a mistake on it, you get some feedback, you do it again at a higher level. It's like a spiral, it spirals up. Nothing else really teaches people, but you do that and you learn really fast. And so the Bruce version of how to be a teacher is you find ways to encourage people to do something, and then you give them feedback to help them go around that circle again and again and again, and they get better really fast. And think about that next time you watch someone teach and see what they're doing, and they're most likely not doing that. And you come away from the workshop saying, well, that could have been better. I could have learned more out of that and stuff. But you come away from workshops like this and you say, whoa, that was really good. Why was that good? Why did that work so well? And it works so well because you're using this learning circle idea, letting people make a mistake, do it at one level, and then give them the feedback that they need to get to the next level, then give them the feedback they need to get to the next level.
Yeah, because that's right. If you give all the instructions at the beginning, we can't actually take it in.
You can't take it in.
I get full up and I've got to actually do it to understand.
Yep. Yeah. And so the teacher's just got to, the facilitator's just got to be okay with the first story is not going to be as good as you want. The last story is going to be a lot better than that, and you always know what's kind of coming next. You got to map in your head, and you're kind of working them through that map, listening to what they're doing. So it's in a way, the facilitator is telling a story, but it's not a story about that you guys are telling. It's a meta story. It's a story about how you are learning.
Story. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that's useful. If you're excited.
Very useful. I'm addicted.